and greetings, peace and greetings, peace and greetings. Is my mic on? Is my mic on? Hello, how are you? And we are back. Uh Thank you so kindly for tuning in again to Eat Toy It's an Experience. Don't Think Too Hard podcast. You're gonna see me laugh, you're gonna see me cry, you're gonna see me make mistakes. My internet be jacked up because I live over here by the airport, so you gotta please bear with me. But we're gonna have a great conversation today. And you hear my birds in the background. For anybody that knows me, how much of a fear that I have of birds, well, I'm gonna say had. I still have to fear a little bit, but in this day and age, I'm pushing through all fear, all blockages. So yes, please excuse them as well. They hear they live. Oh, and they got my dog in the background. Everybody tuning in today. Everybody's tuning in today. Like I said, you go. This is live. This is real life. We're gonna laugh. We're gonna cry. You're gonna see me make mistakes. And anybody that know, I'll name this podcast "Don't Think Too Hard." Because of my favorite uncle that passed throat cancer, and before he left this earth, he asked me to take care of his dog. So that's his dog. He barks. His name is Oreo. Say hey to Oreo, and we call him Old Yeller. Because he always yelling and barking. So say hello to, I'm so sorry about that. He was good these last couple of episodes. Today he just want to show out with the birds. So today we have, again, my co-host, brother Saladin, El Haj Saladin. Um, he has been my mentor for over 20 years. I am great to have him as my co-host. And today we're going to talk about, the topic is community of self. And it's amazing how he picked that topic because my godfather, which is on the show, the first season, spirituality and mental health, Baba Olu, he always say to me, each way it's about community. It's about community. It's about community. You got to show up for the community. What community are you part of? Things of that nature. So before we bring El Haj Saladin on, I'm gonna let him, tell who he is. But speaking of community, I want to take a moment of silence because my next door neighbor died a couple of days ago. Her name was Sharon Evans. They called her Leo. Um, she was born August 16th. I can't remember her birthday. I mean the actual year. But when we talk about community, that woman was about community. I didn't have to worry about anything with my door. She always made sure I got my packages. She always made sure that my children was okay coming out the side of home from going to and from school. When we had to get our apartment renovated, um, she uh she kept an eye out on my door. I had to move out my apartment for a few months, and she stayed in her apartment, and she made sure she would come in my apartment and check to make sure the contractors was doing what they were supposed to be doing. And one time she happened to see me and was like, "Listen, they left your door open." So I had to go to housing. It was a whole big thing. So she used to always make sure that everything was good. She didn't only take care of me; she took care of the neighborhood. She made sure everybody was straight. So I just want to give a moment of silence to Sharon Evans. She was found dead in her home. She was dead, and it's so sad. But luckily, she is so much into her community that she calls and speaks to everyone every single day. So the one morning, one of her friends did not hear from her. She said, "Wait a minute." That woman did not wait too long. She didn't hear from her one morning. That afternoon, she had the cops banging down her door. They had to bust through her door. And it's unfortunate they found her dead. My friend, Sharon Evans. So I just want to give a moment of silence, especially being that we're talking about community. Rest in peace, neighbor. All right. So we're just gonna get right to it. You know, I was supposed to say a prayer, but I always say a prayer. I have to start with a prayer. May the Most High bless this podcast. May the Most High bless all of the viewers. Please block all negative energy, all negative entities, all demonic entities, or low vibrational entities, or uncleansed entities. May my words and Brother Saladin words come through clear and concise. May the internet and the airport do not mess with our internet connection. Please, 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 please. You know the journey that it has to take for me to get to this podcast and log on. And I just want to say thank you for the strength and thank you for helping me create this platform to be able to get this message out. I give thanks, I give thanks, I give thanks. I say, I say, I say. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Brother Saladin. El Hajj Saladin. He got El Hajj because he went to Mecca. You could only get Hajj if you go to Mecca. And as a member of the Nation of Islam, it is required that you visit Mecca at least once in your lifetime. So I'll have to bring on my mentor, El Hajj Saladin.
Thank you. Um, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Um, Talking about the community itself, we're going to get right to it. That neighbor or that sister who transitioned, she was a community herself. She was not only thinking about herself, she was thinking about the community, her neighbors, the people on her floor, the people in the building, like you just said. She already uh, created or cemented the conversation that we're going to have about the community itself. And so when you talk about the community itself, you're talking about yourself, myself, and ourselves. Going to say that again. Yourself, myself, and ourselves. And how we are to connect with serious problems that affect our community. And this podcast is about healing, obviously. And healing is something that we have to do internally. Some of us will have to go, obviously, to seek counseling and professional help because some of us have some deep seated problems that only professionals can deal with. And some of us have to face the fact that we have to do a lot of internal cleansing. When we was on the continent, when we was free as human beings on the mother continent, we always had some, I'm quite sure in the tribe, people who had problems. And those problems were addressed based upon the community. The tribal chief, he probably had doctors or people who was dealing with tribal issues. So we always had issues where that we had to deal with psychologically, and it was addressed. But when we got here to the shores of America, we went through, or our ancestors, I should say, went through the most traumatic experience that was known to man and woman to have or to be enslaved by other people. They witnessed murders. They they they, they saw lynchings, tar and feathering, castrations, families being broken apart, and there was no one there to heal them. The master, the slave master, obviously didn't refer his property, because that's what we would consider at that time, our ancestors, as property. So where did they get the healing from? Well, they looked towards the creator of the heavens and the earth. They looked towards people on the plantation because they were a community. And there's a book out, or a book that's been around for a long time. It's called The Slave Community because they had their own community and they had to deal with the traumatic experiences of the slave experience. And it was someone on that plantation that was a healer. And it could have been multiple people. And so they struggled of being owned by other people. And the plantation is a actually it was a place of it was a concentration camp where brutality was the order of the day. And I know when we see these shows that talk about slavery, which is very rare, they make it seem as though it was about farming. Yeah, there was some bad slave owners, but it was a killing field. Where did they get their counseling from? Where did they get their anxiety? Who came in and filled that void? It was someone on that plantation that brought that kind of expertise from the continent to America. You know, before we get into the questions, but when you go to war, and those of you who are listening to this podcast, if you ever been in the military, and if you ever been to any conflict, war, they don't just bring you back into society because you have witnessed, you have committed murders, you have saw rapes, you have saw the burning down of cities and villages. So they just don't bring you back what is called stateside, back to America, and just let you integrate into the community. They come back to your family. You have suffered post-traumatic stress disorder. Now imagine you go off to war voluntarily, you come back, and the government said, we got to heal you temporarily. You just can't go back and meet your wife and back to family. You need what is called a reorientation. But now just imagine now our ancestors was enslaved for over 3 centuries and emancipation took place. And they said, you know what? You're free. No counseling, no healing, just go. And from 1865 to the present, we have lost our way and now we think as individuals. We have forgotten the issue of what made us a people from the very beginning, a sense of community. We lost that. Like Etoy said about her neighbor, she was interested not only in herself, but others. There was a time when we grew up, because I know this podcast, we deal with various generations, but there was a time in the community that there was elders, the big mamas, the aunties, the uncles. They were responsible not only for themselves, they were responsible for the community. We might have saw them as, prying into our private lives, being nosy. No, but they had a responsibility to make sure that the community was safe. And if you got out of order, they was community. We got to get back to that. We got to get back to a sense of community because in the word community, you have unity. Effort will never get us where we want to go. It's about community. What we heard about in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921, they were a community. They had their own law firm, their own insurance companies, their own movie theater. It is written they had their own airport. Same thing in Rosewood, Florida. We're talking about community, where the society said, you know what, you are inferior. We have the Jim Crow law in place, do for self. And we were successful in doing for self because we had a sense of belonging, a sense of community. We have to get back to that. But there has to be some healing done. Internally, there has to be some healing done. And some of us are looking outside of ourselves instead of looking inside of ourselves. We're talking about the community of self. We have to get back to that which made us successful. We're talking about community. There's going to be many struggles in life. And sometimes we have to rely on other people to help us on this journey called life. Some things we just can't do by ourselves. And there is a book. that was written by Dr. Martin Luther King before he transitioned, called the community or chaos. And he pointed out in that book that the community was everyone who had an advantage. I'm paraphrasing. Everyone that had an advantage, sororities, fraternities, churches, civic organizations. Everybody had a responsibility to help the person who was less fortunate than themselves. We're still talking about community because he wrote that book called Community and Chaos. So if you don't have a sense of community, you're going to have chaos. And that's what we've been having for the last at least maybe 20, 30 some odd years. At least after the 1970s. Because that it was a break then. Because we just came out of the 1960s, the Black Power movement, the Civil Rights movement. We were on the march towards community and self-determination. But somehow or another, we failed, a great many of us, and in instilling a sense of community in the following generations that come after us. No one is going to help us but us. Every other ethnic group comes to America and succeed and prosper because they have a sense of belonging and a sense of community. Whether they come from China, the Korea, the Arab world, and other parts of the globe, they come and they succeed. We have to get back to that. We was destroyed, we was turned inside out, and we lost that sense of community. We have to get back to that. It is so important that we thrive, we struggle for a sense of community. What was the purpose of the great leaders of the past? To teach us to be individuals, solely individuals, or teach us a sense of belonging and a sense of commitment to a community? And we have to get back to that. It's going to be slow, it's going to be painful. We got to do some soul searching, and we have to get back to that which made us a great people. And that was a sense of community.
Ashe, that was a lot.
Yeah, a lot. A lot.
Excuse me. That was a lot, but that was powerful. We do have to get back as a community. There's no I in team. But I do have a question because you
Yes.
know this is you said you Q&A, right?
Yes.
Um remember that book you put me up on to many years ago, The Curse of Willie Lynch?
Yes. Yes.
What's
Well,
your take on that? And and you know the community.
right.
And
Well,
if anybody
there's
doesn't know
been
what the Willie Lynch letter is about, if anybody doesn't know what the Willie Lynch letter is about, it's about a slave master from Trinidad. He was white. He was actually also a motivational speaker, and he used to come to different plantations, and he used to give motivational speakings to other slave masters to teach them how to break a nigga. And the book that I have is him on the beach of Virginia, and talking about how to break a nigga. And the first thing he said was, "Take the mind, leave the body." And so all the slave masters, as I was coming here, he synced how all the slaves that was disobedient, excuse me, all the slaves that was disobedient, heads was chopped off. It was on a stake coming down the roads. He said that's the first thing that you messed up with because you pumping fear into them. He was basically saying how you have to trick the niggers into loving them and caring for them and trusting them, you know. And he also went into the fact of how put the dark skinned niggas in the field and the light skinned niggas in the house, divide and conquer. Put the old women, the elder women against the younger women. We go through things like that nowadays. You know, you see a younger woman and she wouldn't respect the elder woman because she feels though she's old, like she had her time, things of that nature. Put the younger man against, the older man. It's like there's no respect anymore. And not for nothing, that's still playing effect to this day. 400, 600 years later, since no, 400 years later since that book was written. And it's just amazing to me. But I also heard that that book wasn't real, that it was a philosopher that actually written that book, and he had took the philosophy of how they was breaking breaking the slaves into, they was calling it buck breaking. So they was comparing us niggers, as men, as black men and women, to horses. So I could go on and on and on about that. That's one of my favorite subjects to talk about, because that book right there and the philosophy of that still takes place to this day. And how we think as as black people, and the things that we're still trying to overcome, and behaviors that we have, and and things of that nature. So what is your take on that in the black community?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because there was a scholar about a year ago. I listened to him. I believe he was on a program, and he refuted that argument. He said that Willie Lynch was a fictitious story, that it was no person named Willie Lynch. There's a lot of times there are allegories, many different symbols that we can interpret. Let's say, for example, there was no man named Willie Lynch, but we do know divide and conquer existed within the plantation era, that they did divide the young from the old, the dark skin from the light skin, the educated and those that had less education. The slave master, it was a system set up to divide and conquer. They didn't want any unity. They didn't even want slaves to read. They didn't want you to think. As far as they were concerned, we were beasts of burden. And just think for a moment, beasts of burden. They denied us our humanity. And I know some people on this podcast listening and viewing say, well, we know all of that. But there's a great many of us that don't know. They're trying to now bring about a revision of history. Listen to the social structure. They're trying to say now, when in school now, they're trying to remove the word slave and replace it with farmer. They were farming. Yeah, we did that. And we did a lot of other things. Because a great many of our ancestors that came here were craftsmen. They didn't come to this continent unskilled. The slave master knew perfectly well when he went into the west coast of Africa and the interior, he was looking for the best, and he brought the best here. And by bringing us through the Caribbean islands, they brought about division. We have, to this very day in 2024, we are plagued by division. We understand that we're not monolith. All of us don't believe the same way. All of us come from different walks of life called uh, middle class, lower class. We've been categorized in class. These are tactics of division. Many of us heard the audio of Minister Malcolm X, may God rest his soul, where he talked about the field Negro, right, and the house Negro. Many of us heard that. Okay, he was setting up, giving us a picture of the system that divided us then and now. It's a system where you divide people, you can easily manage them. It's the same thing with colonialism. After slavery came colonialism, where it was a system set up to divide from the uneducated, pardon me, to divide dark skin from light skin, and all of the traditions that we once held in through our indigenous experience was cast aside. and a new form of education that benefited the colonial masters. It's almost like a game. If I'm playing cards with you and the cards are marked, you don't know the cards are marked, but I'm taking your money. It's the same thing playing dice. The dice is loaded. I'm taking your money. You don't know the dice is loaded. You don't see the deceit. But once you see the deceit and you say to yourself, you know what, Brother Dean, let me see those cards. Let me see those dice. And you discover that the dice is loaded and the cards are marked. The game is over. Because now you see the deception. And now you have to bring about solutions that better you and your people. It was a strategy. So whether or not Willie Lynch existed or not, get past him if it was a him and get to the strategy because it worked. And whoever put that story together, he was just only trying to give us wisdom on how they divided us. Now, what are we going to do about it? Like I said last podcast, what are we going to do about it? The strategy worked. The Roman Empire used it. Other societies that oppress other people use this system, divide and conquer. But what are we going to do about it? What can we do to remedy the situation in which we always find room to divide ourselves? But every other ethnic group, yes, they got their problems, their internal problems. Yes, they have their dirty laundry, but they don't air it out in public. We're so quick to do that because of the slave experience. And I recommend people out there to get the book called The Slave Community. It's been out for over 20, 30 years. It's in paperback now. And once you read that book called The Slave Community, you'll see exactly what we're talking about. And it will cement the fact of what this fictitious story, if it's fictitious, about the Willie Lynch. It was a well organized system. They didn't want any unity. And just today, in this modern age, they still don't want no unity. They can best effectively control us divided. And now we don't have no sense of community because many of us now are wrapped up in our own little uh, bubble. We don't even interact with one another anymore as far as building a sense of community. Because as long as I'm in my home, I got my social media platform, I got my games. I don't need to go out and build and create a better world. And any leader that comes among us, we find some fault, but we don't want to get off our butts and make it happen. We're still talking about the community itself because you can't build a community unless yourself is whole. If you see something going out there or going on out there in your community, what are you going to do about it? You see young men with their pants sagging, showing their dirty underwears. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit and talk to them or are we going to keep criticizing them? We're talking about the community of self. Nothing is going to drop out of the sky to get us to change our condition. We have to work brick by brick. And let me say this, Etor, before we continue. And I've made this analogy, and those who know me, if they're watching, they know what I'm getting ready to say because I said it often. If Minister Malcolm X or Dr. Martin Luther King or even Marcus Marzea Garvey knocked on your door and you look through the peephole or through your blinds and you let them in and they tell you, I need your help, what are you going to do? All that we read about those great warriors, what are you going to do? Are you going to lie to them and tell them, listen, I got to watch this basketball game tonight? Or I got to do this, I got to do that? You know the mere fact that these men died for the community. It wasn't about them, it was about us. They paid with their lives for the community. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? They suffered, they sacrificed.
King Simon
Yes.
King Simon says Dick Gregory said some other communities do air it out in public and in the news, but we don't speak their language like Japanese, Chinese, and India. What do you have to say to that?
Or the mere fact that we can't speak their language, you don't know what they're talking about. If we don't speak their language, yeah, they may be airing it, but we don't speak their language. How do we know that for a fact? I'm not disputing that there's some that do air their dirty laundry out there, but I think we have more of a problem in doing that. And I think the social structure, they monopolize that, okay, with the divide and conquer. Because let me say this: who who are their leaders in America? Can we point to them? Can we point to the Japanese leader that is their leader? Can we point to the Chinese leader? Can we point to the Indian uh, leader in America? But they do have a leader that control their interests here in America. We're plagued with a lot of leaders. And I'm not against leaders, but what I'm against the failed leadership. Okay? So yes, I agree. Yeah, they air their dirty laundry. Okay? But we're not them. They didn't go through 400 years of
Okay.
enslavement. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. This is what we're here for.
Yeah, okay.
Tawana Thomas says it's not even enough respect in the community for one another for us to be able to correct one another.
Well,
I kind of agree with her on that one because nobody has respect these days. It's things are just not the same. Like especially like in the neighborhood where I'm at. It used to be when an elder woman would walk in the door and there was a bunch of young men in a lobby. They would have respect for her and say hello, how you doing. They would get out her way. Now they just if they smoking, they would smoke the weed, blow it all in her face. They don't even say nothing. They won't help her with her bags. They won't even put the blunt away. They'll just keep smoking. What do you have to say to that?
well, I say both of you are absolutely right. We can't deny the reality, but it had its beginning. Where did the breakdown of family begin? Where did the breakdown of respect for the elderly begin? Because it had its beginning. And a lot of this is generational. And depending on the period in which we were born, will determine how things fell apart. Now, whether we agree about the faith traditions of Christianity, we had a sense of, under the religion of Christianity, a sense of right and wrong, a sense of respecting our elders. But the more and more we became secularized, the breakdown of community also happened, where we use profanity right in the face of our elderly. We don't even help them with their bags. The breakdown of the family took place, in my humble estimation, at least around after the late 70s. Because from the 1930s, from the 40s to 50s to 60s, we had a sense of community, a sense of belonging. There were a lot of more men on the street that was responsible. They was they were not going to let certain things happen in our community, particularly young men disrespecting the aunts, the mothers in their community. And there was a rite of passage. They didn't call it that, but it was a rite of passage. You're not going to tear down your community. You're going to be responsible because we're going to make you responsible. We lost that. We lost that. So the men and women have to take responsibility. Because one thing that my when I was the dean of the school, Sister Elizabeth said, children learn what they live. And she was in the educational system for over 30 years. She said, children learn what they live. Some parents are doing a great job. And sometimes you can teach your children well, but when they come from amongst you and they go among their friends, they start playing a dual role. Pull their pants up when they get to the house, but then pull their pants down and start using profanity. And you don't even think they even come from a decent family, but they do. It's all about peer pressure. And so we got to definitely get back to that. We have to be responsible. I'm talking about the men in the community and the women. We have to have hands on the ground and give these men, young men, because they're going to be the future leaders. These are the future leaders. Like you just said, Sister Etoy, and the sister answered, or the brother that asked the question. These are the future leaders that are going to be here after we're gone. They're going to be here. And they're not properly trained. We have to train them. We have to train them. Nobody's going to help us but us. We're talking about the community of self. We have to do it. We have to do it because these are our future leaders, men and women. We have to do it. I know it's a tough job, but we have to start somewhere. We have to start somewhere.
So,
I don't know. Yes.
question. So, how do you think? Like I said, and shout out to my godfather who's here on Baba Olu. I hope y'all remember him. He was on the first episode for the second season. Baba Olu Durare. Oh God. Baba
It's a tongue
Olu
twister. Yeah.
Dare from
Yes.
Key Wellness. That's my
Yeah.
godfather. I love him. I love him. I love him down. And like I said in the beginning of the podcast, of this podcast, he always used to say to me, the community. It's all about community. It's all about community. It took me some time, to find him. The thank God for him. I will say that. But what do you say to someone that is kind of somewhat lost and looking for community? Which way do you think they should go? Do you have any kind of advice? What I would say is follow your spirit. Get in touch with your Egun, your ancestors, because they would definitely point you in the right direction. Do you have any advice for that?
Yeah. Um, you have to turn inward. That word inspiration, it means in spirit, inspiration. We have to look inwardly. And once we look inwardly and make the necessary changes within ourselves, then we look externally and then we realize that we have to bring about um, changes in our environment. But it has to first start with us. We have to bring about that change. But the black males in our society who are wayward, they will have to admit to themselves in their development, in their change spiritually, that they're lost. If they don't admit to themselves that they're lost, there's no hope for them. Because some don't think they're lost. Some of them think that they were put on earth to do just what they're doing. I'm not saying all of them, but many of them are destroying their community and don't even realize it. And then you got those who don't care. But we have to realize as young men, young women, we're lost. Get in touch with the right people who are spiritual. Read books. Television is not, television could do it, but the corporations or corporate interest is not interested in waking us up to the reality of truth and our spirituality. They could do it, And we who are people of color who have these platforms, like this podcast with Sister Etoy and other podcasts that you all may be listening to, we have the ability to do it. But we have to admit that our community is sick. And what medicine, what technique we're going to use to make them whole. And I don't care how much the government may give us a check called that R word, reparations. It will still not bring about the healing. Well, some of you may say, well, that the writing a check could do it. Yeah, but you still have some trauma. You still have things that you gotta reconcile with yourself. Because the word reparations means repairing damage. Before they write a check, they have to admit that damage was done to our emotions, to our psychic, destroying our cultural traditions. Writing a check is not going to do it. We got a lot of trauma. We got a lot of self-hatred in our community. Money, yeah, it could help. It could set up institutions that maybe perhaps we would need if reparations was given. But you have to admit trauma. It's like
You know,
it's like I'm driving a car.
when I
Okay, go ahead. I don't want to. If there's another question out there, go right ahead.
no, it's all right. No, I just wanted to comment on that.
Oh yeah, no, go
When
ahead.
you
Go right
said
ahead.
sometimes we
Go right
have
ahead.
to, yeah, we have to admit, that we need help. You're absolutely right. That that's the first step. But I remember when I was going through my bout, and it was tough. It was really, really tough. You have to pull strength from deep, deep down within inside of you, and put away your pride and your ego. That word ego is a nasty. That energy is a nasty, nasty energy, and that will stop you from saying and admitting to yourself and to others that you need help. Because in this world that we live in, especially we talking about community, in our community, we don't want to seem weak, because if we seem weak, then we become food. So I'm just speaking from my experience. That was a really, really tough bout. But what I will say, once excuse my language, once I said I don't give a fuck, excuse my language, I need help and I need healing, was the beginning to the journey.
Of
And
your
that journey
of
is
your journey.
tough because you got to go through some deep, and on that journey, yeah, yeah, on that journey, you have to go through so much darkness and so much mud, and most of it's not even yours. Most of it is what was given to you, what you was born into. A lot of us is born into generational curses. With drunken members in our family, or crackheads or murderers, or whatever. And I'm not taking anything away from anybody because I was born into all of that. I love my people. I love my family. Shout out to y'all. But what I'm saying is we have to cleanse from all of that, and I had to heal from the things that I've saw. I remember you talking about when early in the podcast, when you saw somebody, if somebody sees one get killed in the street, even for people in the army, people that's not in the army have PTSD too, especially people in the hood and people in the community. Like when you said you was gonna talk about that word neighborhood. That's just segue. you know,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
for people,
Absolutely.
people in the, we seen a lot of things going on there. So just to admit that you need help is, I just want everybody to know, just to admit that you need help is strength. It's strength and it's power within that. So don't feel ashamed. Don't feel as though you're going to be looked as weak. No, you're going to be looked as strong. I commend you and I salute you.
Well, could I add something to that? When you go to what is called Narcotics Anonymous or Alcohol Anonymous, AANA, the first thing they tell you, You have to first admit that you're alcoholic. And you say, "My name is John Smith, I'm an alcoholic." You have to first admit that. That's part of the program. You have to admit you're an alcoholic. You can't go in there at the AA meeting and don't admit your fault. Some of us don't want to admit we got a problem. If you have a drug addiction and you go to NA, you have to admit you are a substance abuse person and you coming to this meeting for help. Now, we can see that on a more um, human level, interaction with other people who suffer with the same addictions that you have. Can't we see us being on the journey towards truth, light, wisdom, and say to ourselves, "I'm lost"? You know, there's a verse in the Quran, there's a chapter in the Quran, the holy book of the Muslims, which is read by over 1 billion people, called the Holy Quran. There, the 104th chapter or surah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, most gracious and most merciful. Surely man is in loss. You're lost. You have to admit to yourself you're lost. Accept those who believe and deal with truth and patience and constancy. This is a ongoing struggle between the higher self and the lower self. And the lower self deals with all of the things that destroy the inner self. The higher self is truth, reciprocity, light, community, nationhood, a sense of belonging. That's the higher self. That's where we should be gravitating towards. But seems to me, we have we're much a part of the lower self, the lower self. And the system that we live under can best handle us, acting foolish, clownish, saying things that have no importance, utilizing these airwaves, getting involved in people's personal lives, destroying people's personal lives as if we're perfect. We should use these devices, podcasts, all of these platforms that we're in front of a microphone. We should use it for the best interests, not only for Black people, but for all people. Because we all been plagued by these so-called devices. And some of us have done no work, but we're constantly tapping away at the keyboards. We're constantly attacking other people, people's intentions. We're always quick to find fault instead of using these devices, these communications, in a better manner than we're using it um, already. We got a lot of work to do. Yeah, go ahead, Sister Etoy.
No question, no interruptions just yet.
Okay,
Go ahead,
that's
do your
I don't know
thing.
if that's good news or bad news. I don't know, but
But
uh,
but no,
I
but
hope.
you know
Yeah.
what? It just came to me. All right. Neighborhood. You know how you always break down. Remember how we was talking, we was debriefing earlier this morning about this, about today. We didn't do too much.
Yes.
We said we wanted to be organic. Um,
Yes.
but you was talking about, you know how you always break down neighbor. I mean, you always break down words.
Yes.
You was getting into earlier neighborhood. So we talking about community. Can you break that down for me?
Well, neighborhood. Look at that word, neighborhood. It has roots in certainly in Europe, where you live your neighbor. That's a person that lives side by side with you, to your right or to your left, or up and down. Now, because we live in buildings where we live in vertical buildings, particularly housing complexes. But basically, it means living side by side. Neighbor. Now you have hood. Well, we know when it's chilly out, we put over our heads a hood, neighborhood. And so these definitions, they have different meaning. And so hood or neighborhood, meaning that you live side by side with someone. It doesn't even really mean that you have to know them. You don't have to know them. You just live side by side. That's not a community. A community has a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, that each person is responsible for each other. It's almost like a teeth of a comb. When you look at the teeth of a comb, it's evenly spaced. Each one is responsible for each other's success. Community, in the word community, we have the word unity. There are some ethnic groups in America, in New York City, in various cities that you all watch. When politicians come to their community, they are already the community that they come to, they already have a policy agenda. You're not just going to walk in their community and just tell them anything and you're not going to be held accountable. Because many times they vote as a block. Yeah, there may be some disagreements, maybe some that may differ with the group. That's human. But they will vote as a block. They know when they come in their community, they're going to hold these politicians and even religious leaders accountable. But us, they just tell us anything. A lot of times we're just happy because they look like us in melanin. And they promise us things and don't deliver because they already know we're divided. So do we live in a neighborhood or do we live in a community? That's the choice. I'd rather live in a community because I like the word unity.
So my
Living
question
next to someone
is,
don't mean nothing. All right. You could live next to someone 40,
mm,
50 years of your life. Don't even know what their likes
mm,
and dislikes are. Okay. That's neighborhood. Neighborhood. Okay. And many of us have taken that word hood or ghetto. The word ghetto has a European origin from Europe, ghetto. And now we have made it ghetto fabulous. Okay. Words have meaning. And a lot of times we carry words without even thinking rationally about them. And we start, act like the word nigger. I don't like using that word nigger. But now we have made that a word of endearment. But if you talk to our ancestors 100 years ago and dig them up, they would resent that word because the slave system didn't even call them by their name. Every word was a nigger, my nigger.
mm-hmm. So what?
Use it
I have
against,
a. So I do have another question.
oh no. Oh no, you're not going to profit calling other ethnic groups. And those of you out there know who I'm talking about. The other ethnic groups, you're not going to call them spicks. You're not going to call them kikes. You're not going to call their women out of their name and profit from it, putting things on wax and CD. You're not going to do it. The executives of these record companies are not going to allow you to thrive and denigrate and disrespect your women because the women are the community. They're not going to let you do that. They're not going. You can talk about our women all you want, and they'll enrich you, but you're not going to disrespect their women. Not going to happen.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny you said about
And let me say
the
this:
women of the black
Minister
community are
Malcolm
so
said,
disrespected.
over 50 years ago, he said the most disrespected woman is the black woman. That's what he said 50 years ago, Minister Malcolm. Now we out of control now. We
And
don't
it
even call our
is.
women sisters. We don't even call them Miss Jones. That's that B. That's that
And it is.
Ho. Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
No, go ahead, because
Oh,
for the sake of time, I was getting ready to just go left with that. I wish you would have brought that up in the beginning of the
well,
show, because
there's always the next
we
time.
gotta talk about that next podcast
Yeah,
next
there's
week.
always the next time.
That's right. We
Yeah,
gotta talk about that next
absolutely.
week. Because
Yeah.
it's 9:02, so we gotta close out in a bit. But
Okay.
I want you to before we leave, I want you to talk about the black community and the mental health.
Well, the black community,
How
we
can
suffer
how can the community show up?
we have to show up, show out, express our disdain for what is going on in our community. We got to hold our political and religious leaders accountable. I call them the two P's. They're responsible for getting our votes. They're responsible for delivering the goods and services. And our spiritual leaders, they must be held accountable. If they're not doing what they're supposed to do, leave. You're not chained to a church or a mosque or a temple or a Democrat, Republican, or independent or Green Party. If they don't speak to your needs, then leave and organize with people who have your best interests. We don't have to stay there. There's if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, what do they call that? Insanity. Why do you keep staying there? Leave and deal with people who speaks to your interests. We don't have to stay there and just waddle in our own self pity. But we have to educate ourselves to the importance of leadership so when we do see a leader come among us, we know what to look for. Many of us don't even know what to look for in a leader. Certainly, many of us do. But a great many of us don't know what to look for a leader. And when we get one, do we support him? When we get a legitimate leader, do we support him? And Minister Malcolm said these words. I got to keep quoting Malcolm. He said, he said, you should support a man who will stick his head where you wouldn't stick your head. Just think about that. He said, support a man who will stick his head where you wouldn't stick your head. While you're sitting on the couch with your hand in your waist, drinking a Budweiser, watching the NBA game tonight, and you're always criticizing failed leadership. And you're the leader, and you got to make things happen. And we'll get into this later about most of the organizations that were successful in the 20th century were created and sustained by Black women. The Civil Rights Movement, women. The Nation of Islam, women. Various churches, various organizations, well, women. Ida B. Wells, woman. Harriet Tubman sacrificed her life. She was on the most wanted list. People don't know. Harriet Tubman was a criminal in the government. They had a reward for her. We're talking about women. Sojourner Truth, women. Oh, we had some great warriors that are women. I see a question there.
Yeah, Samantha Melville says mental health in the Black community is taboo because no one wants to hear the conversation about unhealed Black men, the foundation of the Black community, which has been corrupted by the system. Mm,
Wow. That's going to take a little. Yeah,
that's
like I said
something.
earlier. Yeah, like I was telling
Let's
her name is
tap into
Samantha,
that one
right?
right quick before we
Yeah,
close
yeah.
out.
Like
Yep.
Sister Samantha made a very interesting observation. I said that earlier, that the Black man has to admit to himself that he needs healing. His ego gets in the way. Okay, the word ego, when I read, calls edge God out. Ego. You have to surrender your ego and say,
Mm,
you know what? I need some mental counseling. I got to go to maybe an imam, maybe a minister, maybe a rabbi, maybe my uncle, or maybe seek professional help. But the Black man, we got a lot of problems. And sports and entertainment is not going to remedy the situation. So I agree with Samantha. The Black man has to admit to himself he needs healing before he go out there healing the community. He needs to be taught how to treat his woman. He needs to be taught how to treat his community. How can he be a mentor and a father figure? Because a lot of young men don't have father figures. How can you replace that role? And you yourself is quote unquote damaged goods. And I say temporary damaged goods because you got to work on yourself. And so, yeah, we got a lot of problems and we have to address it. And writing a check is not going to solve it. Because I know some of us, we think if I only get that reparation check, I'll be all right. Yeah, you'll give the BMW dealer your money and the Mercedes, and you might buy these expensive handbags, but you still have not fulfilled your need of a healing. We need help. We need serious help. And no president now and in the future is going to heal our condition. We got to do it
You know,
ourselves.
it's funny. It's funny that you say that. Is because it's it's funny you say that because I used to do a lot of healing with going, and we're open. This is a safe space here. I'm very candid with going shopping or smoking weed or drinking or I ain't knocking nobody or having sex or whatever like that, whatever may have you. So, and I thought those things would at the time was an outlet for me. And when I had that nervous breakdown, everything got taken from me. It was like all of the clothes I had, all of the money that I had in the bank. I can laugh about it now. At the time, I was crying. Um,
Mhm,
I said, all I have is myself. I had to every God stripped everything from me,
mm,
everything,
mm,
everything, and I had to love myself and heal myself and look at myself and say, who am I without
mm,
those things?
mm,
Who am I without that material wealth?
mm,
Who am I
mm,
without that? It was a
mm,
facade. So it's funny that you say that, yeah, we get little coins and we go give our money, to so and so and whoever, but it's just like, who am I without that? They don't make me, I make them.
mm,
So I had to go through that. If you're not paying attention to your journey and you keep going in a circle and keep going around and around and around and around and around and around, for me, I was sat down and everything was stripped from me. And they said, you have no choice but to heal. I really couldn't. I could barely walk. Samantha,
mm,
she's on the line. I could barely walk. If I walked to the bathroom, my pressure would shoot up to stroke region. So it was like I had nothing but to do but just focus on myself. And I had nothing. Nothing at all. I had no
mm.
money. I had nothing. And let me tell you, within that journey, all I had was myself and God and my ancestors. And that was
Mm,
the most toughest time. But that was the time when I realized that I had to do some major healing.
mm, mm,
Some major healing. I was holding on to so much pain. And what I also
mm,
realized that holding on to all that pain, the reason why my body wasn't able to move the way it was supposed to is because I was holding those different pains at different portals of my bodies.
mm, mm,
And I say have to say that the mental health is so powerful. The brain, the conscious, the mind is so powerful that if your mind is not right, it'll take over your whole body.
mhm,
So once my
mhm,
mind began to get right, is when my
mhm,
body began to heal. Once my mind
mm.
began to get right, is when I was able to start to manifest everything else. So deep, so deep. Hold on one second. Samantha, she got something else to say. She said the system keeps our community poor so we can fight each other for our resources instead of building a community and circulate our money amongst ourselves. Another fact. Another fact
Yeah,
about Samantha.
yeah,
What's
yeah.
your
But you know
opinion?
what? Okay, but there's always a book. It's called Power Economics by Dr. Claude Anderson. We have to understand the importance of saving our money. We think it's a crime to even support our own. Give you an example, real quick, Sister Samantha and sisters out there and brothers. We have what is called nail salons. We now have given up uh, an economy with hair care products. We're giving it to the Koreans. People don't even use those creams and do our nails. You mean sisters can't do nails? What were they doing before the Koreans got here? Because we allow other people come in our community, thrive and prosper, and we think it's a crime to support our own. We have to support. This is community. We're talking about supporting each other as far as food industry, banking, hair care. Okay, all of these things at one time we were in control of. But the integration community had many successes, but many failures. And those, there was two shoes, real quick, Sister Samantha. There was the Black nationalist community umbrella, and then there was the integrationists. The Black nationalists always felt that we need to still have our own. And integration felt, well, let's go integrate into a system that will treat us fairly. We come to find out that we gave up all of our businesses. We abandoned the businesses and went downtown. And the hotels suffered. I'm talking about black hotels, black insurance companies, well, the only one that's still thriving is the morticians because we kill each other every day. They doing quite well. But all the other institutions we abandoned with this false hope that they will treat us right. We have too much, we spend too much time waiting for validation from other people instead of doing what we need to do. We don't have to reinvent the
She
wheel.
also
We have
says
organizations. Yeah, go ahead.
she,
Yeah,
she also says we absolutely need to help, but we have to heal ourselves. And you know what? And
absolutely.
in that sense, I agree. Please excuse Oreo in the background. He's trying to get my attention, and that's because my kids is back there. Last week the kids was on vacation, and I have to give a disclaimer.
Yeah,
Like
I
I said,
know.
you're gonna see me laugh, cry, make mistakes. This is a real life thing. I'm talking about to the audience out there because I don't
Okay.
build my life on perfection anymore.
None of us should.
That also causes mental health. I
Hmm.
had anxiety. Oh, this is not right. This is not right. If it's not perfect, da, da, da. I remember Samantha used to say, if your name is not on it, I ain't doing it. Because she knew how I used to do things to perfection. And it drove me crazy. But I agree with her when she said we have to help ourselves. I used to always help everyone else and don't help myself first. To the point where I had got depleted. I had no energy at all. I would give until my well had ran dry. And it's like we cannot pour from an empty cup. I was done when I had a nervous breakdown. I couldn't do anything for nobody else. And then my godfather said to me, before you do anything for anybody else, you have to do for you. And then after you help someone else, then you have to, do something for yourself again to fill your cup. We cannot pour from an empty cup. So I agree with you on that one, Samantha. Kudos to you.
Well,
And what's
can
your
I
take
add
on that?
something? Well, most of us flew on planes. What does the airline personnel tell you? Put on your mask first before you can help someone else. You have to put on your mask first. Secure your mask first before you help another passenger. Because if you don't put on your mask first, how can you help someone else? So that's something in the spiritual realm. We have to first heal ourselves, put our own mask on before we go out there helping someone else. It's almost like a fireman running into a burning building without his oxygen tank. How are he going to help somebody running into a burning building and he's not equipped? We can't keep running into spiritual buildings until we secure ourselves first. That's primary. Put your mask on first before you try to help someone else. And that's what we need to do. Heal ourselves first. But you know what?
Ashe.
We had firemen and firewomen saw a burning building spiritually in the black community back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. We had warners that came among us that try to warn us. Dr. King used that same analogy. He said he regretted integrating our people into a burning building. The building would represent America. We had to first heal ourselves, secure ourselves, reach deep into the soul of ourselves, see our humanity, stop seeking validation for someone else who see you less than. Who cares what they think? Is what we think, is what the most high think of us, and then build a future. That's what we have to do. But you have to first put on your mask first before you can go out trying to save someone else. And until we do that, how can you heal and help someone and you haven't secured yourself? We have to
P.
do that.
Monroe says, "Peace, brother Chandler."
Yes, that's one of my good sisters who's very positive, just like you, Sister Etoy, just like the sister that's been asking several questions, and a lot of other people out there who are very spiritual, who may not belong to quote unquote an organized religion, but has tapped in to the great creator of the universe. Because in actuality, I know it's short, but the creator of the heavens and the earth, he doesn't belong to an organized religion. He might have set religion on earth, on the planet earth, but the creator of life sustains all of us.
Mm,
Sustains all of us.
I agree with that.
Okay?
I agree. So so we've been on, it's 9:18. We've been on here for about a little over an hour, about an hour and 13 minutes. So
Yes.
just for the sake of time, I got you. I got you one more week. I got you one. But this is why I said I had to have you 3 episodes. If I can have you more episodes, I will. You let me know. We can still
Okay.
have other guests
That's
on because you
fine.
have so much
That
knowledge, and our conversations is always beautiful. Next week maybe we could touch on ancient Kemet.
okay.
Uh,
Okay.
or maybe
Okay.
we could also touch on the ah oh man, the Huttentot tribe. Remember them?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We could touch up on a lot of things. I'm
The
always
Huttentot tribe. But you know what? You know what? I would like to touch upon that right now, right quick. If anybody doesn't know about the Huttentot tribe, do you want to explain the Huttentot tribe? But I want to say something about it. I want to say something about it. Do you want to explain it? And I
no,
can
no,
just
go
ad
ahead
lib
because
my
I
little
want to
anything
do.
at the end.
Yeah, yeah, go right ahead.
Who the Huttentot
No,
tribe
go
was?
right ahead. Yeah. No, go right ahead.
Okay. Well, the Huttentot tribe was a group of women who had the African women who had
Hmm.
these big old behinds. We mean they was voluptuous. Okay.
Yes.
Um. So there was this woman. What's her name? Venus. Because I haven't read up on it in a few years. What's her name?
Yeah, they
Venus.
they called her. Yeah,
They
they
named
call
her
her
Venus.
Hottentot Venus. Yeah, they call her Hottentot. She was part of the Hottentot.
Hottentot.
Actually, she was from South Africa, and they brought her body back. But that's
Uh huh.
under Mandela when he became president. He got her remains back and flew her remains back to South Africa. Uh, she was uh,
Right.
uh, she was called
So they had
Hottentot Venus. Yeah,
Hottentot Venus. So
yeah,
they
the
took
Hottentots.
her
Yeah,
to Paris, right? Is it Paris?
yeah. They
So
took
they
her
took
to
her,
basically
and
they.
she was
Yeah, go ahead.
You want to do it?
She
You
was
want to do? You want to do
okay.
it?
Okay. Well, let me say this very briefly. They made a spectacle out of her. They brought her around a
That's
lot
what I
of
was getting to.
European the Europeans to the point where there were a lot of European women who was jealous of her. And if anyone look at the dress that the Europeans, particularly in America, with those big dresses with their buttocks, bigger than it was you the way the dresses were designed. It gave the impression that white women had big buttocks. Well, where did they get that from? They got it from our sisters, mainly Hottentot Venus. She was not the exception, but they paraded her around. They made a spectacle out of that sister. Till she failed, her health failed from her. And they even cast her genitalia. They cast it because they were fascinated that this woman had a big buttocks. And you know what? We still plagued by that because we have many of our sisters who parade around, who even die, get the Brazilian butt lift, right?
That's
Trying to
what
get
I was getting
okay.
to.
We're still talking about healing out there because now you have
But it's the
reduce.
mental health behind it. It's the mental
Of
health.
course,
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
Because now you're taking something that excrement
Mhm.
come out of, and you put value. Yes, you should put value from your head to your toe. But the social structure says, well, in order to be beautiful, in order to attract men or be attractive, you have to put more emphasis on your buttocks. Well, Hottentot Venus was and according to the social structure, she was the pioneer that they took this woman from Africa and gave her little trinkets and, and they abused that sister. I think she died, health failed her, and they paraded her around, made a spectacle out of her. May God rest her soul. Okay? And Mandela, the president of South Africa, requested for her remains to come from Europe, and he gave her a respectable burial in South Africa. Many people can Google that because it was on social media at one time. They gave her an honorable mention, and they gave her an honorable burial, Hottentot Venus. And to this very day, I don't want to mention names out there, but the artists who are parading around showing their buttocks, well, that's a throwback to Hottentot Venus. It's a throwback to that. Our most successful people in music, what are they showing? Are they showing their intellect? Yeah, many of them have gifts and talent, but what are they showing? They showing below their waistline, their butt. One artist who you all know, I think she has a butt
It's just
insurance.
amazing to me how it's amazing to me. Yeah, it's amazing to me how she was ridiculed as a black woman because Hottentot Venus represents me as well. She represents all of our black women, and she was ridiculed because of her shape. But now
Hmm.
everyone wants to look like her, including white women.
Of course,
So it's just amazing, and and that did a damage on our mental
it,
health.
of
But
course it
now
did.
everyone wants to look like us.
Even down to your lips, right? They're getting injections now in their lips, okay, because they want their lips to look
Mhm.
fuller. Okay, what we
Mhm.
look down upon, but the European and the social structure want to emulate. We look down on our dark skin, but what's the first thing that they do when it gets sunny, when the weather the temperature start rising, or they go to tropical places? Why? They lay in the sun into what? To get a suntan, or they go to suntan parlors. Okay, there's something about us that they want to emulate, but us, we get skin whitening cream. We get these injections in our buttocks, chemicals that destroy us. Well, there's women out there, you might have heard about it, got her legs amputated because she lost circulation in her buttocks because she got these injections to try to get her butt fuller. Tell my sisters, black women, you don't need that. You're gonna devalue yourself. You're gonna reduce yourself to your buttock. What about above your head? What about? Because I've always said the problems reside from the neck up. Why would you do that?
Mhm.
Okay,
I
there have been
agree.
beautiful sisters who are in their grave right now because they went to doctors, so-called doctors, that did the Brazilian butt lift, and they wound up losing their lives because you define yourself above your weight, below your waist, excuse me,
Now, what?
rather than
Now, I
above.
just want to say
Yes.
just to say, just to throw a disclaimer out there, no, this is no disrespect to any woman, because I don't body shame, bash, or anything like that. Who has gotten that surgery? People do different things, to help themselves,
Mm-hmm.
with their
Mm-hmm.
mental health. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe, maybe getting your butt lifted or your breast done or any
Or
augmentation that you
tummy
have gotten
tucks.
done,
Or
sister.
tummy tucks.
And exactly,
Right.
sister, whatever you need to do for your mental health, and you go ahead and do it.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
it's no bashing, no shaming, no here at all. So more power
Because
to you. I'm
because
glad you all made it out safe.
some black
Yeah,
men do some kind of enhancement too. We just don't talk about that either. Okay. There's some black men, they're doing some
yeah,
injections
they do
too.
enhancements as well. But that's another topic. We Yeah, that's another topic. We
Yeah.
veering off, but that all ties into mental health. But we are
Yes.
1 hour and 21 minutes in, and this is how we always do. So I just gotta cut it short.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta
Absolutely.
cut it short. But like I said, what I just want to say one more time, because I know what it's like to go through the changes. And this is the reason why I created this podcast. This is the reason why I became a mental health advocate. This is the reason why I became a motivational speaker. Once you hit a certain age in life, or you just go through life where you people are body shaming, and they say you have to look this way, and you have to look that way, and things of that nature. We're not really taught to love ourselves. If you're too skinny, or if you're too fat, if you're too this, if you're too that, everything has to be so perfect nowadays. And I just want to say that to all the sisters and brothers that had to do what they had to do for their mental health, more power to you. And I'm glad that you made it out safe and you are alive. But just know that God created you the way you are. This is for me to say to myself as well, because I put on a few pounds, and I'm just like, be bashing myself as well. So that's why I said there's no bashing here. You are still loved. I also had to learn that, and I said today as I was driving, I said beauty is an energy. It comes from within. And let me tell you something. There's a poll that's done that said men will love natural bodies better than augmented bodies. It's about loving thyself. And I had to go through that journey of me loving me, because I found every single thing wrong with me, from my fingernails. Like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, is it not anything about yourself that you like? Are you serious? Are you not looking in the mirror? But it had to take for me to go through that nervous breakdown, for me almost losing my life, to say I freaking love me the way I am. I'm so thankful and so glad that I am alive. So I just had to say that. I just had to get that disclaimer, because everyone is welcome here. Everyone, and I don't want no one to feel that they cannot come here for healing, and come here, and this is a safe space. Everyone is welcome, because we are all God's children. I had to throw that out there. Sorry, brother Saladin. But after we can get real technical here. But after you leave, I'm still gonna be here.
Yeah. Like I said again, we're not here to bash anyone that needs, some enhancement, and they still a part of the family. They still part of the community. But what is
That's
your
right.
intentions? You know what I'm saying? By doing that, to go under the knife, you want some enhancements. You want to look beautiful. Um, but at the end of the day, you know, you got to live with you. You have to live with yourself.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I gotta cut you. Sorry about this. Sorry for cutting you off. But on one of my episodes last season, I had
Mm,
three sisters. But they wasn't sisters. They was black women, um,
right.
who had to go under the knife, who had to get surgery because they was overweight, and they had to get the surgery because of their health issues. They had diabetes, they had high blood pressure, and they was exercise. And I know these three women, and that was a good episode too. They had a lot of health issues because of their weight, and I watched all these women do all of the exercises, do all of the dieting, but nothing stuck to them. So in that instances, they had to go and get the surgery. So we can't, so I understand why people do certain things for certain reasons. So kudos to those sisters as well, who took that in their hands to go get that surgery, so they could be more comfortable with themselves, and also to get their health together as well.
Hmm.
So kudos to them. Maybe I should bring them back on the show this season to see how they're doing, to see what's going on with them. Check back in with them. But is there anything? We 126. Here we go. We still going. Is there anything that you want to say? Because we could go on and on all night. We gotta go.
Yeah, I know, and we don't want to. There's uh, a term that is used in certain circles. We don't want to overburden the camel. Sometimes you can put a lot of cargo
Yes.
on a camel, and a camel is called the
Yes.
ship of the desert because Allah created it with those long legs and those eyelashes to keep the sand out. But that's for another story. Why, But um, as long as you're comfortable in your skin, know that all of the well, we have to start with ourselves inwardly because you can do all of the cosmetics. And I'm just not a, I'm talking about men too, because a lot of times we go in the weight room, we drink all these diet, whatever, these enhancements. But you got to be comfortable in your skin, whatever you're doing out there, because the soul is not overweight. The soul is an invisible entity that is real.
Mm,
The soul it doesn't concern itself with weight, riches. It enhances you as a person, as an individual. That's what we should be focusing on, the soul. But we have to protect the soul because a lot of times, if you don't know the value of a soul, you'll give it away. Like we always hear this
mm,
term in the black community, you done sold your soul to the devil. Yeah, but a lot of people don't
mm,
know what the soul is. We think it's soul food or some kind of song. It's the very life itself that dwells in every man and woman on this earth. The soul, the spirit,
mm,
the
mm,
invisible entity that the ancient wise people knew that they had to preserve and protect the soul. And they didn't allow children to be in anyone's company teaching them. I'm talking about the ancient wise people before they put their damn hands on us. And even when we were brought here in chains, people who knew those traditions knew that the soul was central to our existence. We have to
mm.
preserve the
I
soul.
say, I say.
And that's why we
I would
had,
like to end.
yeah, we got to end. I know. Yeah.
I would like to end on that note. I would like to end on that note.
Yes.
We have to preserve the soul
Yes.
because if you don't have your soul, who does?
Someone else does.
Exactly. And you know what? And see, I'm about to jump into something else, but we gotta end it.
Yeah,
You
we got to
know,
end it. I know.
I'm gonna leave y'all with this. I'm gonna leave y'all with this because I'm so glad you said that. What I also learned on my journey is that, and what my godfather said to me one time, you gotta know who you're talking to. When you hear that, because we all have, everyone has could be able to hear God. Everyone can hear their ancestors or or divine spirit. But who are you talking to? What are you feeding yourself? And we're not just talking about food. What are you listening to? Who are you listening to? The people that surround you, are they feeding you anything positive? What are you looking at? Are you feeding yourself anything positive when you look at these things? When you're talking, what how are you talking? Are you emitting negative energy or positive energy? And that goes to what you say, all our problems come from the neck up. So I get it. So, but we gotta close. So it's because we 1:30 and 23 seconds. So
Yes.
next
Yes.
next episode, next episode. This was a good conversation as usual. You know, this is. Let me know if you want to do more episodes, please. Because next episode is supposed to be our last episode. But
It won't
please,
be our last. I would use the word inshallah. Inshallah means if Allah wills, it won't be the last. Okay. Next week
okay.
will not be the last. Okay.
I received that. So I'm gonna call you in a few, and I want to say thank you again for blessing us. With your knowledge. Thank you for blessing with the conversation. Thank you to everyone that had tapped in and made a comment. Whether you agreed or not, because that's what keeps the conversation going. We don't always have to agree with everything. We all here. This is a safe space, and we all learning, and we all going to add to this conversation because it needs to be had. Mental health in the Black community.
Mhm.
Period. So I want to say thank you to
Thank
my
you.
mentor who I've known over 20 years. And I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for
Thank you.
everything. And I can't wait for our talk next week. I'm gonna call you soon,
Yeah.
okay?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Peace.
All right. Take care. Peace. Yes. I was trying to keep it short, y'all, but y'all see the conversation. We still got quite a few people on that still here. Yeah, that was my mentor. You know, he goes by the name of El Haj Saladin, but I know him as Chandler. He has been in my life for many, many years. He has mentored me. He has just been there, been that voice of reason, that sound of reason, you know, that educator, that spiritual leader. And I just want to say thank you. So I gotta end because we went over time. But I want to ask. I always end with a question. I always say this: what did you do for yourself today? Did you do anything for yourself today? Because you know when we get up, we always press for time. I got a poem named Time too. Did you do anything for yourself today? Because when we get up, if you have children, you got to make sure your children ate, go to school. If you work for anyone, you have to get up and punch that clock and go deal with them for 8 hours, 8, 10, 12 hours, maybe 16 if you're doing a double, 24 if you're doing a triple. Then you got to go through the commute. Then you got to talk to people. If you're that leader in your community or in your family, and it's only 24 hours in a day. Did you do anything for you today? Did you take a moment and for you today? If you haven't, I challenge you. I challenge you. I challenge you to do something for yourself where you say no to everything else and say yes to yourself. Try it. It's okay to be selfish with yourself because guess what? Hmm. If you don't take care of you, you're not going to be able to take care of anything else. I had to learn that. Now, my favorite word, I heard Kevin Hart say that. No, no. I was afraid to say no. I was afraid to say no. Saying no to things that doesn't fit right with my spirit, how can I say this? Gives me power. Try that. If someone asks you to do something, or if you don't feel like being somewhere, or if you don't want to be at a certain location, maybe at a certain job or a certain area where you live at, try it. Say no. I don't want to do this no more because guess what? We don't have to be so rigid and say I have to stick this out. No, only thing you have to be, only thing that you have to be, what's the word? I'm drawing a blank here. The only loyalty you have to be loyal to is yourself. That's it. You get this one life. Yeah, you're gonna come back many of a lifetimes. You're gonna learn lessons and things of that nature. But you get this one life to be you. You get this one life to be Jay Looks. You get this one life to be Curious Hollis. You get this one life to be P. Monroe. You get this one life to be Samantha Melville. You get this one life to be King Simon. You get this one life to be Lady P, Ill Flow, Legs, Keyray, Tawana, Daphne, and everyone else that's logged on that didn't say anything. Everyone else, you get this one life right now to be you. So I challenge you. What is it that you always wanted to do that you haven't done? I don't care how old you are. I started this podcast when I was 41. I'm 43 now. I always thought because I'm older now and and it's too late and no, who says that? You as every time you wake up you resurrect. When you're sleeping, you're laying flat. When you wake up, you're resurrected. Every day, you can be able to start something new. Every day. So I challenge you. I challenge you. Do something for yourself. I don't care what it is, as long as it don't hurt you or anyone else. So that's it. Um, my name is Empress Etoy. Thank you for tuning in to Don't Think Too Hard. Again, I dedicate this podcast to my uncle who has recently passed. His name was Daddy-O. He was the role manager for Wu Tang Clan. Shout out to Wu Tang. Shout out to my cousins. My uncle used to always say, "Don't think too hard, Toy Toy. Don't think too hard." He used to smoke cigars. Don't think too hard, Toy Toy. Don't think too hard. Don't think too hard. And he had stage 3 cancer. And I don't want to go too much into his business, but that was my heart. It still hurt to talk about it. But what took him out was his thinking. He was thinking too hard. He had went out with a cardiac arrest. And that was my favorite uncle. Me and him was so tight that he named his daughter after me. And I'll also dedicate this podcast to my father, rest in peace. He used to always say, an idle mind is a devil's playground. So I dedicate this podcast to my uncle and to my father, um, James L. Hairston Jr., and to everyone else who's on a journey, who is afraid or who thinks that they are alone, um, or who feel as though they don't have anyone to talk to, or they feel as though they can't admit, or they feel ashamed because sometimes they have a little struggle. This is why I would create this podcast. And I don't do anything off of perfection anymore because that created anxiety for me as well. Like, for instance, I stutter all the damn time. When I'm nervous, I stutter. I jumble over my goddamn words. And for a long time, I used to be afraid to do public speaking. I would sweat. I know I'm sweating freaking bullets. Do you hear me? Palms sweating, going to the bathroom, throwing up, coming back at the panel like, Now I'm like, shit. I have so much to say. I have got to tell the world. And I don't care if I stutter. I don't care if I stumble over. I don't care if I laugh, I cry. I don't care what mistakes I make. This is real freaking life. So don't let anything and anyone stop you from being you. So tune in next week because I gotta go because we went over 38 minutes long. Thank you for still being here, who's still watching. Um, Again, do something for yourself and tune in next week with Brother Chandler. Another Q&A. Please ask questions like how I did earlier. And yeah, we still got comments coming in. Wow. Oh God. Wait, Samantha says, Samantha says, "E-Toy, is that your bird? I'm shocked. I won't say wow, but I see you since you're healing. Yes. Let me tell you, Samantha. I said it in the beginning of the show. I said, like I just said, it's gonna be mistakes. I got my uncle's dog. He always barking. I said, yes, there's birds in the background. And I said, if there's anybody that knows me, know my fear of birds. But let me tell you something. That fear is a mental health issue. And I'm looking to break all my fears, because you know why? Fear is such a low vibrational energy, and dark entities live in fear. That's a whole nother subject. Oh, we got Nooks. You're not gonna let me go. I love you, Nookie. Love you, cuz. I love you, Samantha. I love you. Ashe to Curious Hollis. Thank you so kindly for tuning in. Shout out to Jay Blooks. You know, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, everyone who has tuned in. I greatly appreciate all your help. But I must go because we are way over time. Thank you so kindly. I greatly appreciate y'all. Peace and love and stay blessed. And make sure you protect yourself. I say.